Excellent. Well, thanks very much everybody for being here. Yeah, first of all, when thinking about this conference and what I'm going to talk about today, I was preparing something that would be useful for you because we're not here to sell anything. It's really about sharing our thought leadership and what works for us in the industry. So therefore, this imperative that we think is now very much prevalent in the industry, which I call here the ecosystems. So I've compiled here a bit of statistics for you. This one basically shows where exactly our projects end at the Boston Consulting Group when we do blockchain-based consulting. So as you see that 12% of them actually reach full live production, which is basically quite a lot for a consulting agency. We really pride ourselves on this. Not many other consultancies can do this, but still, being a blockchain enthusiast, I would say that this is not enough and we can push further. So, because even if we have 35 of them, 35% ending in the strategy part, we still every time have our intrinsic motivation pushed all the way towards full flight production. So the question here is, what exactly prevents us from having more of them landing in full flight production? And I'm not going to talk about why blockchain is good or bad for polar bear, or how can we push from 50,000 transactions per second to 100,000. So in my point of view, it's quite meaningless for this current milestone we are in terms of adoption of blockchain in business. Therefore, a couple of learnings from the diamond industry and what we've gathered out of this project. So, talking about blockchain in the diamonds industry, we know a company called De Beers and Tracr, which is one of their products. This is what we've been collaborating with them on, and one of the key reasons why is the way clients perceive diamonds. So every client wants, of course, to know that their diamonds are not used to fund different conflicts. They want to know that diamonds are not used in anything like money laundering. They also want to make sure that they're sourced ethically. So that's very important for clients nowadays. And at the same time, it's very difficult to actually prove anything in the supply chain there because, as you see, the primary data points are pretty much missing. Certification processes are expensive. KYC is almost non-existing. And also, there are synthetics that are flooding the market right now, and it's hard to detect those synthetics. Well, therefore, what we've done, in a nutshell, we came up with this, which is an open blockchain-based protocol. In a nutshell, this is something that's based on our proprietary fingerprinting technology that allows us to basically, based on the way AI looks at the light reflected from the diamond, identify it in a unique way. So every diamond in the network, every diamond on the blockchain here has a unique identifier, and this unique identifier is used all the way throughout the supply chain. So basically what it does, it allows buyers to know what they're buying from. They know the entire history of the diamond. Anytime you have a diamond in your hand, you present it to this so-called quality station. We can basically say, hey, that particular diamond is coming from this mine. It was basically polished and cut by this and that company. It was owned by different people. And this basically allows people to start pricing their diamonds at a higher premium as opposed to diamonds with shady type of history. So this in itself is a big basically step for the company that owns Tracr, and today it has accumulated over 100 million in savings and gains. So that's quite a substantial piece for us, and we are quite proud about it. Also, of course, you can imagine that a whole variety of different use cases are going to be stemming out of it. For example, when you own your diamond on the network, you can basically say, hey, I'm going to simply put half of it as a collateral for something you're buying, and therefore you wouldn't need to actually present this diamond physically to anyone. It will be all done electronically on the blockchain. Good? If you have any questions, just raise your hand. Right, with this, we're diving deeper into some of the learnings because it's not about diamond per se, it's mostly about learnings. So, this is, for your information, our state-of-the-art pipeline. That's the way we funnel all our blockchain use cases. So we start with pain points, continue with ideas, narrowing them down into use cases. Then use cases will be narrowed down towards the ones that we want to do a POC on. Then once we've done the POC, we would be doing like economic justification, scaling, etc., etc. But the problem with this is something is missing. So we found out that if we do it this way, very often when we get all the way towards use cases, we still get at scale. But why can we not? Well, that's absolutely because the ecosystem part is being constantly overlooked. It's not only in our case, it's also in the case of many other companies. So at best, companies are looking at business model, and very often they are looking at technology or platform. But actually you need to start all the way with the ecosystem, because if there is no ecosystem, or incentives are not balanced, or the net value is negative, everything else is meaningless. So therefore, the proposition here is to always start with the ecosystem thinking. Make sense? Yes. So what is an ecosystem? That's the way we look at it. So ecosystem for us is 6 main facets. It starts with the customer vision. So if we have partners aligned along the value chain, do we actually have the same perspective in terms of the product? Do we serve the same kind of customer? Or are we not in agreement about it? So the key here is to be in agreement. Then if we have our partnerships, are those state-of-the-art partners that contribute to our ecosystem? Or should we maybe work further towards building a state-of-the-art one and choose the best partners? Then it's about loss of engagement. Is this actually stipulated? Who takes the loss, who takes the benefit, what happens if some of the parties go dissolved. So all of this needs to be in place from the very beginning, otherwise again ecosystem will be dysfunctional. Then of course it's about data and processes. It's a crucial piece, definitely. So if data and processes are not aligned, if we're not talking same data structures, same processes, it would mean that we cannot really run our blockchain transactions between our organizations. Then it's a talent question, so do we have a task force that will be working between different organizational units and aligning this project? And lastly, it's about ecosystem value. So here I have some more details on the ecosystem value. That's a very interesting slide here that comes from a real use case that we've done recently. As you see, green ones are the key effects introduced by blockchain, and some of them are positive, some of them are not. And as you can probably notice, in some cases, for some companies, it makes no sense to implement blockchain. But the question here is, how can we convince the entire consortium here that it's possible? And we are looking therefore at the total value net analysis. And if the total value net analysis shows that in some of the configurations, the ecosystem is winning, then we can redistribute the win towards the parties that contributed to the development of this particular blockchain-based offering. And this makes, basically, this constitutes the fuel of how we're going to pay for the project and how we're going to be incentivized to actually make it happen. Talking about ecosystems in general and design, we have different types of ecosystem design over here. For example, we have orchestrator. And many companies that we're talking to, they want to become an orchestrator. But for them it would mean you want to have high risk tolerance and you want to invest a lot of capital because you would need to push through different adoption challenges, you would need to build different technologies, convince different parties. But of course in the future there is also potential for you to yield a lot of benefit as an ecosystem orchestrator. We heard, for example, what happened with Maersk and how they first were a closed orchestrator, then they became an open one. So that's, for example, one of the patterns that a company like that took by choosing to become an orchestrator. Then you have a contributor, and you can be a contributor if, for instance, you want to create a new capability that today wasn't really existing in a particular ecosystem. So you're not putting a skin in the game for the overall success, but what you're doing is you're saying, hey, I'm going to bring a new capability which will be useful in a network. And then lastly, you have basically the partner piece. And the partner piece is something that is less transactional, requires some investment, nevertheless also brings benefits back to someone who actually became a partner. Yeah? So that's like 3 ways of ecosystem design in terms of your position as the entity that we see out there in the marketplace. Now, ecosystem can obviously be either closed or open or somewhere in between. We think it's one of the critical dimensions that need to be assessed when designing it. So, for example, when you're choosing a closed one, clearly you maintain a high level of control, but at the same time also you sacrifice a little bit the speed of your development. So, for parties that coming in from the outside, it would be a little bit like in the question, like, why would I join if it's closed? What if this orchestrator decides to change the rules of the game? What if something else changes? What if they want to sort of get all the benefit out of it and leave me standing on the side? So that's a bit of the downside of the closed one. But if you go for an open one, same time you can allow for almost instant adoption, and many other clients or many other contributors can join almost instantly. But the problem here is, if there is no consensus on which way to go, it's very difficult for you to predict the future of this ecosystem. So you basically can linger on without any successful activity, although there would be many, many parties joining in. Yeah? Also wanted very quickly to show you how one of the typical ecosystem designs can look like. You see that it is not something that's either closed or open all the time. It is always somewhere in between. And there is no one-size-fits-all solution. So depending on which problem we are solving, we will need to be choosing either to be more closed or more open among some of the dimensions. Yeah, for example, you want to limit the IP sharing because you, as an orchestrator, you brought a lot of new IP. At the same time, you want to allow more freedom in decision making because you want newly coming in parties to contribute to innovation around your IP. Yeah? But again, there is no one-size-fits-all, and also I'm not of the school of thought that says everything is totally open from the beginning, because in the commercial setting, it's not going to work like that. Okay? Good. Now, in terms of organizational design, so very often we are looking at it from the perspective of either existing business unit, new business unit, or separate entity. Experience shows that it's better to go with a separate entity because when you have no legal sort of, legal, let's call it heritage attached to the company, then it's easier for you to make relationships with newcomers that join your ecosystem. And therefore, it's also easier to set up new contracts, be it on paper or algorithmic. Also it's important to note for me over here that we see right now the emergence of so-called off-chain ecosystem governance strategies. So governance by basically committees and portals and shareholders, etc. But what we also see right now developing in the marketplace is some of the companies want to work together in so-called competition way by applying blockchain itself for ecosystem governance. So to be able to use smart contracts and automated voting agents in your critical decisions when it comes to deciding which turn your ecosystem should take. And we think that this definitely is the future because this allows us to actually, without involving humans, to quickly steer your ecosystem towards a particular outcome that's interesting for the majority of the parties who are on board. Okay? Now, very quickly about how we are structured as an ecosystem. So, as you can see here, we have a bunch of partners aligned. We have different parties along the board. For example, we have the Digital Ventures. It is the party that allows us to actually grow ecosystems and grow new ventures in a very, let's say, sort of fabricated way. Then we have a bunch of research institutions on board. For example, the MIT Media Lab and Coin Sciences. And importantly, we have a number of technology delivery partners. So startups as well as bigger enterprises that feel the need when we see that need out there in the market. Yeah, so that's how we are structured if we're talking about ecosystems. Now, to conclude, in terms of looking at the value imperative for your blockchain projects, I think that ecosystem is the key piece in 2019 at least, and probably further on. And again, what's very important for you to remember is that you need to think about your ecosystem position. So where do you want to be? Do you want to be the orchestrator? Do you want to be the partner? Do you want to be just a contributor, just a transactional type of contribution? What's the ecosystem configuration? Should it be closed or open along the key dimensions? And also, what's the net shared value? If it's zero or it's negative, you should drop the project right away. If it's positive, you need to think about how do you distribute the value originating out of the consortium that you're developing. With this, thanks so much for listening and open for questions. Anything? Don't be shy. Yeah, nothing? Oh yes, there you go.
Hi. So I have a question. So it's really interesting how you got this diamond tracking with blockchain, but what's the bigger picture? Like, how did you get there? What's the story of this?
Yeah, so
What was the market need basically? Like, I don't see it.
That's a great question here. So the market need over here is for you as a consumer, you as a buyer of the diamond, you will be not valuing it as high as you would have been if you knew the provenance. So if you don't know the history, if you think it's a shady diamond, you would drop the price, and as the bank, you wouldn't be engaging it, storing it in your vaults, right? Because you think maybe it's used to fund conflicts, maybe somebody did money laundering with this. So therefore, the whole price of the asset goes down if people think it's shady. So therefore, the transparency solution allows us to actually push the gray market and the black market out of the game by elevating the price of good diamonds. Thank you too. Anybody else? It's a conversation. Right?
You did such a good job there, no questions.
Thank you.